like when you were asking me the top 5 regrets, I'm like, the regret that's probably the biggest for me, and this is something that's come up continually, it's not about being happy like the last one. It's more about the nuance of fully appreciating what I have right now.
Mm.
And I feel like that's where some of my biggest pain is. It's like sometimes I can feel the way my conditioning is objectifying reality. And there's just a desire to sink in and cry and be fully fucking present with the experience I'm having. And sometimes I'm like, I know that that's possible, and I can't slow myself down enough to appreciate the views and the blade of grass and all the other stuff, or the connection that, I'm having with someone. And it kind of comes in waves, the gratitude. And when it's there, I'm so deeply appreciative of it. And I would say that experience, like that gratitude for life, and I don't even mean like beautiful things, like, pretty views. I even mean like sadness. Like, can I fully fucking be here and grateful for the sadness that's flowing from my body, or the grief?
Mm.
And that, like, top 5 regrets, I'm like, I think that's where I've zeroed in my life, and not trying to be grateful, but just trying to come back to be with life as fully as I possibly can in every moment.
That's beautiful. What I'm hearing is that it's the 5th regret with a more accurate spiritual lens, knowing that happiness is on like a positive pole, and it's not something that can be accurately strived for, but you're interpreting that last one, permission to embrace what is fully. And I can put my hand up and say that it's a real edge. And I really live my life by these 4 tenets. The 4th one is that fulfillment's here and now. And I see the purpose of life being fulfillment. And I see fulfillment being an amalgamation of present moment aligned decisions that I've split into 3 categories that are creating, celebrating, or elevating, giving, receiving, or growing, as like the 3 ways that I categorize access points back to the present, back to my heart. So sometimes I feel like I got to smash it, and it's like there's something to do, some big edge to real difficult conversation, proposing to my partner, starting a business, messaging you, some courageous thing that's more external and more execution based. Sometimes the real courageous step is to have permission to receive, ask for something, or just lay there and just soak up, like snuggling with myself in the moment, or just basking in the sun. Or thirdly, like there's an irrefutably loud block of some kind of way that the universe is calling me into, alchemizing what's present. Some kind of like, I'm struggling to give, struggling to receive, and this is going to have to work with what is. There's an emotion there, there's some trauma here, there's some kind of way that the universe is calling me to grow. And I see those as equally opportunistic to connect to my heart based on the discernment of what the universe is presenting to me and what's needed to be in fulfillment. And I struggle with that. That's why I created that model, to help me. Because the embodiment of it I find very difficult. Thank you for sharing that vulnerably, man. Do you have any practices that you're doing in your world that you're using to call yourself more into the present, or reference points or anchors back to it? You mentioned it's a big edge. What do you do with that?
So recently, it's been a lot of meditation. And I've got, when I say a lot, sometimes it's 25 minutes, some days it's like 2 hours. But I've really kind of amped up the dial and being like following that as a calling, as opposed to other things I used to fill my time with. And I find the regularity of that practice is making the veil thinner. It's like sometimes I'll just be driving and I'm like, I stopped driving. It's not Miroslav driving the car now. It's like I'm driving inside myself, and I'm experiencing myself as the road and the trees and the car and everything else. And sometimes it's just a split second. I'm like, oh, there it is. Like there's that relationship to the greater self. I don't have, I do have practices that I do spontaneously when I remember to do them. Like there's little tantric practices of, when you're eating, you let yourself become the taste and fully merge. So the experiencer, the experience, and the experiencing become one, which is a little meditation that I tend to do in brief whenever I sit to do a formal practice. But then it's nice to just notice those glimpses come through, like, oh, I'm having chocolate, and I just melted into the experience of having chocolate. Like, it's not me and a having and a chocolate. We just dissolved, and it's just that moment happening. But I find for me what's worked well is really having that platform of having a regular practice. It's like those opportunities open up more spontaneously of their own accord.
Thanks
And
for sharing.
I'll add one more thing here as well. I started working recently with this guy that's been supporting me a lot, and he was like, I think you have a differentiation between the awakened state, which feels good for you, and the non-awakened state, which is like, being in shame or grief or all this other stuff. It's like, you're awake here as well. You're just not recognizing your awakeness in these moments. And he's like, naturally we have a preference for good experiences. But beyond that, what it opened up for me is, like, I had an experience on stage not long ago where a lot of shame came up afterwards. And I'm pretty good at holding it myself. Externally, most people wouldn't have known that there was shame moving through me. But we got in the car, and usually my partner drives if I've been speaking, and I was like, no, I need to drive. And I jumped into drive, and I could feel the part of me, the ingrained part that's like, I need to get home, and I need to, like, sit down and meditate and journal and process this thing. And as we were driving, I pulled over to get petrol, and I'm pulling the hose off the pipe, and it was just this split second of like, there's nowhere to fucking go. There's nowhere to rush. This shame is so perfect. And just watching that other part of me fall away that was trying to get rid of it and judging the shame unconsciously, I was like, oh, this is spacious. Like, I'm just having an experience right now. And this experience is shame, and it doesn't need to change. And after that, the part that wanted to change was still there, but it's kind of like its power had been somewhat removed. It's like now it was up against the fact that, yes, there's a part that wants this to be different, and also it's perfect as it is. And not all of my chips were in the table towards, I need to change this experience. It was just like, oh, the following morning, the experience was still there. And I was like, this is okay. Like, can I stop fighting the need to change it? And can I accept this as a part of life as it is?
So beautiful, man. I feel like this is, in my observation and experience, a chapter of the journey that like the second, because I don't know what's after the second, maybe there's more, but like the second chapter after healing, experiencing, feeling to heal, doing trauma work to solve myself, doing plant medicine to fix, and doing a bunch of things to try to improve what is, and then getting to a certain point, at least in my conscious awareness when I'm aware of it, because I forget about it all the time, where the purpose of the healing work isn't to change myself, but it's to create a new relating experience with the fragility inside that knows that there's going to be nothing but unconditional love present, witnessing the pain that it's usually is what's coming up for me, whether it's fear, anger, grief. And then that part that's experiencing the pain feels unconditional love, because inherent within the healing, inner child work, trauma work, emotional release work, there isn't that inbuilt energy of, I want you to go away. I feel like it's like turning away from the inner child, even though it's turning into a breath work ceremony, a journey, or journaling practice, or, hey, I'm walking into a session with this amazing healer. But while I'm walking into that, I've also, behind me is my inner child that's really wanting to be seen and just loved as he is, without him being any different. But I'm kind of like, I'm really excited to see you heal up, because I want you to get this little guy the fuck out of here. That's what I'm indirectly saying, and what I've been saying for years with my healing journey. And I still do a lot of the time, but the awareness has started to come in of that pattern, which I perceive to be the same thing that you're talking about. So subtle, hey?
It's very subtle. And it's like, until you're there, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.